All right, Rob and Slim Show. We are back with Ryan L. Terry from Forza Crowd.
Hey, you guys! Thanks so much for having me on this evening, and thanks so much for being a big fan of the show from the get go. I hope you've been enjoying our episodes. There's 3 out right now, and I hope you've had a chance to listen to all 3 of them.
I have to admit, I'm a terrible person, Ryan. I've only gotten to listen to 2, but it is such a good show. It is so clever. I feel like it's got everything. It is an amazing sitcom in the form of a podcast with 4 30-something-year-olds who share an apartment after being forced into the situation after heartbreak, skyrocketing rent, and all that force them together. It's super cool.
Oh, thank you very much. It's when I originally wrote the show years ago. This is back when I was in graduate school. I wanted to tell those stories that don't seem to get a lot of screen time. We've got plenty of shows featuring 20-somethings and their problems, and we even have shows like the Pioneering Golden Girls that was capturing those latter, still yet golden years of life. But there seemed to be a segment that was missing, and it was that emerging group out of millennials that are in their 30s and still trying to figure life out. Some of whom were still living at home in their 20s out of no intentional effort of their own, just the economy being the way things are, jobs are the way they are, and it's so you have almost this second or third adolescence, if you will. And so there's still this idea of coming of age that isn't just left to 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. There is this idea of still coming into your own later on in life, especially after life deals you some blows, like your rent doubling or being divorced or being broken up with. And so I wanted to capture those stories from the perspective of working professionals who have careers. But just because you have an established career does not mean that life doesn't have its own obstacles that you're still going to have to face.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, that makes it so much better to me. Like, yeah, life's gonna have its downs.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I was thinking about when I was listening to your pilot, that a lot of TV has this trend that, like, by your 30s or like early 30s, late 30s, you should be good. You should have a good job.
Yeah.
You should have,
Danny Tanner.
Yeah, you should be Danny Tanner. You should have like a family. But that's just not reality.
And if it's not perfect in 20 minutes, it'll be perfect in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the characters are so much of what brings the magic to the show, because the plots are plots we've seen before, so there's not necessarily anything unique about the plot in and of itself. We've seen these stories, but through our characters and through taking that sitcom magic, which was king of television for like 50 years, and just reimagining that magic for the podcast airwaves, I think gives the show that unique edge, because there are others out there, and so I'd be remiss if I was to be so presumptuous to think we're the only ones who are trailblazing. There are other shows. Now, there's not very many, but there are other scripted podcasts out there that are have their own angle, and they're bringing that creative edge to podcast, which is largely fine folks, talking about movies or sports or television or video gaming. And all those shows are great, and I listen to them all the time, but there's not much in the way of scripted content. And so I wanted to, I wanted to write scripts. I teach film at the University of Tampa, screenwriting and American cinema. And so I wanted to take those writing skills, and I didn't have money to shoot a show, but what did I have at my disposal? I could do this.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask Ryan if you had planned or ever planned to bring it to that point where it will be a web series.
I would love for that to happen, but it takes a soundstage and 3 cameras and multiple operators and a master control operator. Like, it's a lot to run a staged 3-camera setup, because if it's not 3-camera, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do single camera. I want to do live studio audience with 3 cameras. That's what the show wants to do. So until it becomes a reality, that there can be a sound stage with a set built and those 3 cameras running and switching between them. I don't I don't have any plans to bring the show to the screen because it could reasonably be shot with 1 camera. This is not a 3 camera. This is not a 1 camera show. This is a 3 camera show, and I want to, if it is going to be on TV, I want it to have that same form that I imagined it with, which is the classical American sitcom setup.
Yes, cool. I want to go back real quick too, and you mentioned the 4 characters. I want to ask you, for our audience, who are the 4 main characters?
Sure, we actually have kind of 4.5 or 5, if you will. That 0.5 is, I'll get to her last.
Oh, Miss Halverson.
She is everybody's favorite character.
Fantastic. I just want to say she's so hateable but so lovable. Like,
precisely, that is how she is written. And she is voiced by the indelible, incomparable Shannon Hull, who has her own podcast, and you can connect with her through our show. Shannon Hull truly brings such a that she brings that nature to Mrs. Halverson, in how she delivers her lines, and I'll talk more about her in a moment. But we start off with our 2 characters, Bradley and Cameron, voiced by Max Ice and Jeffrey Feitner, respectively. And we come in on a mildly intimate evening. They're watching they're Netflix and chilling, so to speak, except they're watching Nightmare on Elm Street. And if you follow the series, you'll find that many of my favorite movies have ways of making little cameo appearances in there. And of course, Bradley goes in to propose, and Cameron's like, "Oh, wait a minute, dude, I'm actually, I've come out as bi." And that's another story that isn't told. We all, coming out, the typical coming out story, that's been done. It doesn't mean that it's old, because there are important coming out stories, but it's been done. And so I wanted to reimagine coming out differently. Like, what if you had you dated your partner for a long time, and then it's like, actually I'm exploring my sexuality. That has a major effect upon a relationship, and we find a comedic way of portraying it, but it doesn't take away from, in real life, the seriousness or even the trauma of it. And we don't make light of it. We have fun with it, because that's what a sitcom does. It has those teachable moments or those thought-provoking moments. It just, tells it to you in a way that you can laugh along with the situation.
Yeah.
And so they open up our show, and so Bradley is very much a very type A, and Cameron is much more laid back. And so through my years, I take traits of different friends I've had, and even traits of myself, and I channel them into characters. So there's no character that is like this is this person in real life. No, they're inspired by lots of different people. There's a lot of me and Bradley, and anybody that's been a friend of mine for any length of time, that won't really come of any surprise to them. But we have Bradley and Cameron, and then we have Allison and Dylan. Allison, our original voice actor, for reasons of her own, made the decision to step out of the show. And we're still friends. I've known her for a long time. It just wasn't something she could continue with. So now Allison is voiced by Cassandra Dodge, and she has and is just falling right in with the character, and is already bringing her to life. You heard her on episode 3, and you'll continue hearing her on the other episodes. And Allison works with Bradley at the radio station. We took the idea of Frasier, and we inverted it. So instead of your Frasier-like character being the radio personality, we flip-flopped it. So we've taken Roz's character out of the producer's booth. We put her on the radio station, put her on the mic, and we've taken Frasier and we put him in the control room. And so Bradley's the producer of Allison's show, and it's sort of it's our own take on a Delilah style show.
Yes.
And so we did that with them, and then we have Dylan, who is our resident former frat boy, who is in the show. If it's breathing and gives consent, he's down for a good time.
He is.
And so
he's got to be my favorite of the
so Dylan is voiced by Chase Grant, and he's a local community theater performer here in Tampa. And then we have our narrator, Dr. Squee, who's from the UK. We have.
I thought that was Dr. Squee. Yeah. I thought that was. I don't know why, but when I heard it, I thought that was Dr. Squee, and I know him from his podcast.
Yes, we've got cast from the UK all the way to San Diego, Seattle. A lot of us here in Central Florida, and so we have cast from all over the world, and we get together every other Sunday to record and rehearse our episodes. And so Dr. Squee voices our narrator, who I wanted to have a personality, not simply fill in the gaps that since we're not a visual format, we have to tell, but I try to dramatize our telling as much as possible. And he brings a self-awareness to the character and does a brilliant job with it. And then we have, last but certainly not least, everybody's favorite character, including my own, is Mrs. Halverson, again voiced by Shannon Hull. And she, Mrs. Halverson, is that person who is offensive in so many ways, but she has a good heart, and so you cannot help but love her because despite the fact she says wacky, sometimes borderline offensive things, other times very offensive things, she has a heart of gold.
She rubs you wrong in all the right ways. She rubs you wrong in all the right ways, Ryan.
And I think a lot of it has to do with, I imagine her being from the Midwest and having that charming, Midwest accent. And Shannon's from Seattle. Portland. No, Seattle. Yeah, she's from Seattle, and she's not from the Midwest. She's never lived in Minnesota, but you'd never know that because it's like she stepped right out of Minnesota, or other places in the Midwest. And no, she's from Seattle.
All I gotta say to you, Ryan, is Cheese Buscemi is the best name ever. It's all I've been laughing about for the last few days.
Yeah, Cheese Buscemi. That episode is written by my co-writer, Zachary Rohr. Zachary and I, we've known each other a long time. We actually met each other when we were both working in entertainment at the Gaylord Palms Resort in Orlando, and back in 2011, and been friends since then. And so he writes every other episode. I write every other episode.
I love that.
So if you listen to the credits, then you'll hear. And then I think on Twitter we put who wrote and directed the episode. So that was Zach. So I'll be very happy to pass that along to him. And the other member of my team, which I haven't been able to mention yet, is my amazing producer, Danielle Hill, soon to be Danielle Meskel. She's marrying her fiance here on Halloween.
Wow.
And she's my producer and a longtime friend of mine. Many of these casts have been personal friends of mine. Cassie has, and Cassandra, and Danny, and so Danny and I, we met when I was in graduate school. She was an undergrad, but I was a lab assistant in the TV studios, and she was one of the students, and she'd come in for help, and we formed a friendship just around our time spent together in there. And her fiance is a wonderful guy, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for either from 2014 or 15. So cool. you have 5 or 6 years. And Danny, she's certainly been a champion all throughout the show, because this show has tried to come to life so many over the years since 2014. And she's been there every step along the way, and always being a cheerleader and a great friend. And I certainly couldn't do it without her. And so I just want to. She doesn't get you don't get to see her very often, her name, or but she's very much there, and she keeps us organized, keeps us on track, keeps us scheduled, and she's just a fantastic producer, and so it's the producer creates the environment in which the director can thrive, and nice. She certainly does that.
That's awesome. I want to ask too, you mentioned alternating scripts. How far ahead are you script wise? Have you written
actually our cast even wonders the same thing. And so I'm actually finishing up our Thanksgiving episode now. It's all outlined and it's mostly written, actually. I have the third act to write, and so we're at least written through Thanksgiving, and then we already know what we're doing for our Christmas episode. And I won't spoil it here, but it's going to be hilarious, and it's going to have all that Christmas magic. But much like our Halloween and Thanksgiving episodes, it's not about Christmas or about Thanksgiving or about Halloween. These shows take place on those holidays, just like real life does. Real life isn't about Christmas. It's not about Thanksgiving. It's not about Halloween. But we love these holidays, and they're fun, and they're a part of our popular culture and in our lives. And so I take situations and I imagine what the situation would be like if it were to happen during these holidays instead of the focus being on the holiday itself, because that's that gets done. Hallmark Channel does that all the time. I just want to tell great stories that take place on these holidays, and so we're written up through Thanksgiving, and we'll be writing the Christmas episode here shortly, and then we'll take a break and do some writing over the holidays and come back together and start recording again in January. The interim, because we won't have content for probably 6 weeks or more, as I'm going to feature each of our cast members and crew in little mini-sodes to help fill in the gap between our Christmas episode, which is December 7th, I think it's that weekend, and then when we start up again at the end of January or beginning of February, much like a TV schedule. So during that time, I'll feature mini-sodes with our cast, so you, the listeners, can get to know them a little bit more. So it's always writing, and so that's what you have to be.
That's cool.
That's showbiz. Always be in some stage of the production process, whether it's writing or pre or post or in middle of principal, whatever it is. Always be in some stage.
Yes, Ryan. You sent me some clips. I didn't know if I could play one right now for our audience.
Yeah, we looks like we got about 10, 12 minutes. So why don't you go ahead and play it, audience. This is a clip from episode 3. It does not have Dylan in it, but I did pick a scene that I think really encompasses. If you haven't seen the show, kind of encompasses the show outside of the pilot. This kind of gives you a slice of the show after we've established everybody. Before you do that, I have to give a shout out to Lana White. She is our brilliant composer who gave us all the original music that you hear on the show. She wrote and wrote and recorded our theme song. She also wrote all the transition music. She has produced the music is produced by Dave Anderson, and Lana White and Dave Anderson really just set us up for success, and we were able to start with such great energy because that is a killer theme song. And
yes.
Lana White, who you can also hear on the Retro Cinema podcast, because that's where I found Lana White, because I'm a big fan of Gidget Von LaRue show, and so I heard Lana White's theme song on their show. I'm like, I need her for my show, so I reached out to her, sent her the script for the pilot episode, and she loved it. And so thank you so much, Lana, for giving us our theme song. I love it. Our cast and fans, you'll love all the original music. And I'm glad that we have a show that's not only original and original interpretations in so many different ways, but we have all this great original music as well.
That's an awesome thing to add to it. Yeah, I didn't even think on that level. Like that, everything you do is made for your show. That is super cool.
Yeah, so go ahead and give it a play.
I'll give it a play right now, right?
Mute the mics.
Dylan must have forgotten his keys again.
Allison gets up to open the door.
He's really got to stop leaving his keys on half the bedside tables in the city.
Well, if anything ever goes missing in here, we only have a few hundred people we'll have to track down.
Standing at the door is Mrs. Halverson, dressed as a Candy Striper from the hospital.
Hiya, kids. Oh, my Lanta, what are you 3 gloomy gusses doing at home on a Friday night? Shouldn't you be out sowing your wild, youthful oats?
Sorry, my oat spreader is in the shop.
Well, of course it is when you constantly look like you should be eating a tub of Ben & Jerry's and watching beaches.
Why are you dressed like you should be giving me directions at the hospital?
Did my anonymous complaints about the real see you next Tuesday building concierge finally get you fired?
No more than my fake Tinder profile has ruined your reputation around town.
That was you saying that I robbed my dates after tying them up?
Simmer down, guys. Mrs. H, why are you dressed like this?
Well, you know how Mr. Halverson used to volunteer to answer phones at the Community Encouragement Center?
Used to. I thought he still did.
Well, last week he received an excited caller saying, "I've decided to do it, I'm gonna do it." And Mr. Halverson kept telling the caller they could do it and to go for it because they only live once.
What's wrong with that?
Well, he accidentally answered the kleptomania hotline. 4 people died during an armed robbery. Now, Mr. Halverson isn't allowed to volunteer there anymore or foster a Sarah McLachlan puppy. I just had to get out of the house before he drove me crazy.
Is this story going anywhere?
Sometime before you die, Mrs. H.
Careful, I might come back as your personal poltergeist. Anyway, I was reading the weekly community magazine, and I saw an ad for a volunteer position at the hospital in the orthopedic ward that sounded fun. So I show up at the hospital in my old showgirl's costume with a can of doggy chow and...
You showed up to the hospital dressed as an exotic dancer?
How was I supposed to know the ad said candy striper, not stripper candy? Damn dyslexia. But I gotta tell ya, I got a standing ovation.
Didn't you say you were in the orthopedic ward?
Are you deaf? The neighbors heard her.
But then how did they... Mrs. H, were most of these patients male?
You're darn tootin'.
Oh my God, I love it, Ryan. Are we ever gonna be introduced to Mr. Halverson?
You'll just have to wait and see.
Aye.
He's yeah. So
Well.
you never know with this show. But don't hold your breath. If you are to ever meet him, it's not going to be for a very long time.
I feel like that would be like season 5, maybe.
Season 7.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it is such a good show, such a great production. I love it, dude, and I definitely can't wait to hear more of it.
No, thank you guys so very much for bringing me on and giving our show an additional platform to try to find new fans and listeners who would like to laugh again. There's I think sometimes we underestimate the importance of being able to listen to something that causes us to laugh. It's great to listen to things that make us think about our favorite films and cult favorites and video games we like and even politics, which that's not what I listen to. But if that's your thing, so be it. And so we have these things that we have these things that we like listening to. But sometimes we forget that we want content that not only makes us think, and that's really important, but also makes us laugh. And what better way to be prompted to think about something in a slightly different way than to do it through the magic of laughter and getting to know these characters. Bringing these characters into your earbuds, or the speakers in your car every 2 weeks, and feeling like they're part of your lives, much like we did with our favorite sitcom characters from shows like The Golden Girls or The Nanny or Frasier, Will and Grace, I Love Lucy. I mean, all these shows, Laverne and Shirley, so many have really gone in to inspire this show, and we felt like we had friendships with them. We have an entire show called Friends. These are our friends, and Joey. There's a lot of Joey and Dylan, just the frat boy version, and so so that's what I want to bring to people. Is I want to bring them content in which they can laugh, which is funny. The irony is I'm known as Professor Horror on Twitter, and because horror is really my area of expertise, but horror and comedy do share a lot in common in that they intentionally seek to evoke a physiological response from the audience. And I won't use this to an academic tangent, but they do. And so I'm found that I really had a penchant for writing comedy, at least in the sitcom style. I know, to be honest, I'm not strong at writing other forms of comedy. But this is how I naturally write. And so just taking that and capitalizing on it and hoping that the show makes a positive difference and impact into all of our fans' lives.
Nice, Ryan. Ryan, we have to end this. I'm so sorry. It's been great talking to you. Where can everybody find you and your show?
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at RLTerry1. It's the number 1. You can find Forza Crowd on Twitter at Forza Crowd Pod. You can also find Forza Crowd on YouTube, as well as through all of your various pod-catching apps. Just search Forza Crowd. It's 4 with an apostrophe S because it's 4 is a crowd. Forza Crowd on the pod-catching apps. And you can follow Mrs. Halverson and all of her zany adventures on Instagram at Mrs. Halverson OnlyFans. And you can follow all of her zany adventures. And so she likes going to Universal Studios and getting the Shark Attack drink made by Zach. So if you're ever at Universal Studios, Florida, go to Shea Alcatraz, order your Ocean Attack from Zach only. He's the best. And she goes there. She goes to Texas Day, Brazil. She goes ice skating. And she does all of these crazy things. And so you can connect with our show through Instagram by following Mrs. Halverson OnlyFans.
I'm following right now, Terry. Ryan, thank you so much. It's been a great time talking to you, my friend.
Thank you guys so very much for affording me this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it, and I know the cast and crew of our show does as well.
Awesome.
Have a great night, my friend.
Thank you. I'm about to jump right back in the pool. I've been talking to you poolside. So I'm about to hop right back in.
Enjoy your swim.
Talk later, dude.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.